after Parkland.
Right.
You've had issues in your family. I've had issues in mine. We've all known people whose children
are traumatized,
afraid to go to school, parents who've told us we don't want to send our kids to school today. This has become an epidemic.
Yeah.
And the president has to know, the Republicans have to know, even the NRA has to know, this is going to happen again, because you look back over the past 5 years, and again, the numbers are so dramatic that 3 of the biggest mass slayings in American history have happened over the past 5 months.
Yeah, it's staggering.
Oh, wait, over the past 5 months.
Yeah, it's staggering. And look, you're never going to go broke betting on congressional dysfunction on Capitol Hill, inhibiting them doing the right thing or the obvious thing. But the other part of this that is challenging is we've also seen Rupert Murdoch weigh in on issues where he hasn't been able to move Trump. I think immigration is probably the most prominent of those. So there are some clear headwinds here. But the other thing that's notable about the way that the Post is weighing in today is they're weighing in support of these kids, even at the same time there is an active movement on the right wing to try to undermine the credibility of their case.
Oh my gosh!
It is disgusting what you're seeing out there.
Some of the attacks against these kids.
This guy, Dinesh D'Souza,
beyond slimy.
It's stunning, and you do think maybe the thing that might change now is whether that 5 to 6% for whom this is a single issue voting issue is gun rights, and they always call their senators and they call their Republican senators, and so the Republican senators are only hearing from the gun rights people. Whether actually now, because these are the high school students who seem determined to keep this issue alive, and their parents will now start making this a single issue for them when it comes to voting, and then they might start, because that's what needs to happen. We need to match on the gun control side, needs to match the gun rights side. Otherwise, those people on that hill behind us are not going to change their position.
Let's put this in now. There are now some people who are attacking the outspoken student survivors for their activism and their voices. Among the most brutal was from author and filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza. After the Florida House voted down consideration of assault weapons ban, he tweeted, quote, "Adults 1, kids 0." He also mocked a student who wept after the vote, tweeting, quote, "Worst news since their parents told them to get summer jobs." You know, I've known this guy since his days at the Dartmouth Review. I still don't understand him. I don't even know why his voice is allowed out there. And there's 2 other people like this that at some point need to get a life and figure out something else to do with their time.
So Donald Trump Jr. hit the like button
there's a 4th.
on this tweet from a conspiracy theorist who used the school massacre to attack both a student survivor and the FBI. And reminiscent of Alex Jones after Newtown, an aide to a Florida state lawmaker was fired after he used his state email to tell a journalist that 2 of the student activists were not actually students, but actors. To that, Senator Marco Rubio tweeted, claiming some of the students on TV after Parkland are actors is the work of a disgusting group of idiots with no sense of decency. Unfortunately, that's gone mainstream.
And here's Fox News host Tucker Carlson and a guest last night.
All of a sudden, you're seeing these kids involved in calls for very specific pieces of legislation. And the allegation has been that they are in some way in contact with organized anti-gun groups. And people who have suggested that have been denounced as immoral and heartless. And how dare you question these kids or attack them, which, for the record, I am certainly not doing.
Where their voices would be valuable is where were the signs missed? These students were there. They dealt with this kid every day. But the media is focused more on a teenager's expertise in supply-side control measures for guns, which, Tucker, let's be candid, they probably have not studied a very complicated, layered issue.
So let's get it straight.
Yeah.
On Tucker Carlson's show last night, a guest actually blamed the students for the slaughter, for not being perceptive enough to report. And then, saying that these students are not experts, they cannot speak out against these mass killings where children are gunned down in their schools because they're not experts at supply side gun economics or whatever he said. That's like saying that my kids couldn't look up at the towers as they were like burning and falling to the ground, and knowing people inside, if they had known people inside the towers who had died, and say, "Oh, you have no right to talk about that because you just,
not an architect.
You don't have the architectural background to understand why those buildings crashed." I mean, this is. We could do all the numbers. I mean, but it is more people die from guns than die per year easily than died at 9/11. 9/11 took place. Everything stopped. The city stopped. The country stopped. Everybody stopped. And Bush and Cheney implemented the 1% solution. Did whatever it took to stop the next terror attack, and Americans went along with them. And in this case, we're having 9/11 at least every year. Our kids' schools are getting shot up. And again, I probably am far more conservative on guns than most of the people, not only here, but maybe you hunt, right?
I hunt.
Yeah, I think Vanderheim might be pretty conservative on guns too. So, but you know, the thing is, all I'm talking about is bump stocks, background checks, and limiting the sale of assault style weapons.
Right.
And by the way, I don't even mind if they put them, you know, in hunting clubs and all this other stuff, and they're just regulated more. But we're talking about a small section of you know, the gun industry right now, and just trying to make it safer. And these people are freaking out. They're attacking victims.
Yeah. This shouldn't be that hard. There is common ground that we should be able to find using simply common sense. And look, there may be areas where we disagree about how exactly this regulation should occur, but the fact that there should be regulation, particularly when it comes to background checks, assault weapons, and bump stocks, obviously,
right.
We should be able to find common ground. It shouldn't be that hard, but our political process is paralyzed right now, and has been for quite some time, because of the NRA's ability to mobilize these single-issue voters. And President Obama did write an op-ed in his last year in office, indicating that he was going to be a single-issue voter on this, and that he was only going to support candidates who supported common sense gun control. I'll remind you that Bernie Sanders at the time was not particularly pleased with the writing of that op-ed, because it raised some questions about his own record. But that's the kind of commitment that we're going to have to demonstrate to this issue: sustained commitment, both on the Democratic and Republican side.
The other side on this is showing such a lack of humanity to not support these kids.